Welcome to Echoes of Time, where history whispers its secrets. We explore timeless stories and forgotten moments, crafted to help you relax and unwind. Let the echoes of the past guide you. Now, settle in as we uncover another thread in the fabric of time. Picture this, a grand banquet in a medieval castle, with golden platters overflowing with exotic dishes. Meanwhile, in a humble village, peasants gather around a simple pot of pottage. The contrast between the diets of medieval nobles and peasants couldn't be more striking. But what did people actually eat back then? And what can their food tell us about their lives? In this video, we'll dive into the fascinating world of medieval cuisine. We'll explore unusual and luxurious dishes served at noble feasts, and the simple yet hearty meals that sustained the peasantry. Along the way, we'll uncover the stories behind these foods and the role they played in medieval society. Let's begin our journey into the flavors of the past. Food of the nobility, a feast for the senses. Let's start at the top, with the extravagant feasts of the nobility. Medieval banquets were more than just meals. They were displays of wealth and power. Nobles spared no expense in sourcing exotic ingredients and creating elaborate dishes. One such delicacy was peacock pie. Picture a golden brown crust baked to perfection, and inside tender peacock meat, often dyed in vibrant colours. To impress their guests, the cooks would sometimes reassemble the peacock, feathers and all, to make it look as though the bird was still alive. This wasn't just food, it was a spectacle. Preparing this dish required careful handling of the bird, roasting it with aromatic herbs and spices, and then artfully reconstructing it with its feathers to dazzle the guests. Another luxurious dish was swan roasted in its skin. Swans were a symbol of elegance, and serving one at a feast was the ultimate status symbol. The bird's skin and feathers were carefully removed, roasted separately, and then reattached before serving. The preparation was intricate. The swan was stuffed with a mixture of breadcrumbs, dried fruits, and spices like cloves and mace, giving it a rich flavour. Then there's blancmange, a creamy sweet dish made from rice, almond milk, and sugar, ingredients that were rare and expensive at the time. Preparing blancmange involved soaking and grinding almonds to extract milk. The almond milk was then slowly cooked with rice until it formed a velvety texture. It was often served with a garnish of candied fruit or slivered almonds, a visual and culinary delight. These extravagant dishes were often accompanied by spiced wines. Known as hippocras, these wines were infused with exotic spices like cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg, luxuries imported through intricate trade routes spanning Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. To make hippocras, winemakers steeped spices in wine for several days before straining and sweetening it with honey or sugar. These spices, often transported by caravans and ships, symbolized the host's wealth and connections to distant lands. But what about the stories behind these foods? Many of them were designed to showcase the host's wealth and their connection to far-off places. After all, who else could afford spices from the East or exotic birds from foreign lands? Fun fact: King Richard II of England was a fan of almond milk-based dishes, often incorporating it into his elaborate feasts. He even commissioned one of the earliest known cookbooks, The Form of Cury, to preserve his favourite recipes. Now, let's shift our focus to the other end of the spectrum, the humble meals of the medieval peasantry. For peasants, food was about survival, not spectacle. Their diets were simple but nourishing, consisting mostly of what they could grow, gather, or trade locally. A staple of the peasants' diet was pottage. This thick, hearty stew was made from whatever vegetables were in season: turnips, carrots, onions, and sometimes a bit of barley. Cooking pottage involved slowly simmering the ingredients over a fire in a large pot, allowing the flavors to meld together. The aroma of the simmering vegetables and herbs would fill the home, creating a comforting and inviting atmosphere. Leftovers were often reheated over several days, making it an efficient and sustaining meal. Another common food was black bread. Made from coarse rye or barley flour, this dense dark bread was far less refined than the white loaves eaten by nobles. Black bread was baked in communal ovens, where families would take turns preparing their weekly supply. Its dense texture made it filling, and it was often eaten with cheese or dipped into pottage. Interestingly, black bread has made a comeback in modern diets, praised for its rich flavor and high fiber content. This resurgence is largely due to growing trends in whole grains and artisanal baking. On special occasions, peasants might enjoy cheese and curd cakes. These simple desserts were made by curdling milk with rennet and pressing the curds into small molds. The resulting cakes were sweetened with honey or dried fruits, providing a rare treat for the family. For protein, peasants relied on beans and lentils. These legumes were easy to grow and packed with nutrients. Beans were often dried for storage and later rehydrated in soups or stews, while lentils were cooked into thick porridges. Meat was a rare luxury, and when available, every part of the animal was used, including bones for making rich broths. Peasants also brewed their own ale, a weak beer made from barley. Brewing involved soaking barley grains to produce malt, which was then boiled and fermented to create a mildly alcoholic drink. Ale was safer to drink than water, which was often contaminated, and provided much-needed calories for peasants performing labor-intensive work. These simple meals reflected the peasant's life, one of hard work, resourcefulness, and close ties to the land. Unusual medieval foods. The medieval palate was far more adventurous than our own. Let's take a look at some of the more unusual dishes from this era. One such dish was lamprey pie. Lampreys are eel-like fish that were considered a delicacy in medieval Europe. King Henry I of England is said to have died after overindulging in lampreys. The preparation involved cleaning the lampreys, boiling them in spiced wine, and layering them in a pie crust. The rich, fatty flavour made it a prized dish at noble feasts. Another curious delicacy was dormouse, a jelly made from fish bladders. Preparing dormouse required boiling the bladders to extract gelatin, which was then flavoured with rosewater or saffron. The resulting jelly was poured into moulds and served as an elegant dessert. And then there was brawn in aspic. This dish consisted of a boiled pig's head, which was deboned and shredded, then mixed with spices and set in a gelatinous broth. Once solidified, the aspic was sliced and served cold, often as a centerpiece at feasts. One particularly unusual dish was roast hedgehog. Hedgehogs were wrapped in clay and baked whole. This method not only cooked the meat but also made it easy to remove the spines. While considered a rustic delicacy, roast hedgehog was particularly common among rural communities who made use of what was readily available in their environment. Once cooked, the hardened clay was cracked open, removing the spines and leaving tender, flavorful meat inside. This dish required skill in handling the animal and was considered a rustic delicacy. Another striking food was stuffed dormice, a delicacy inherited from Roman cuisine. These small rodents were carefully cleaned, stuffed with a mixture of minced meat, herbs, and nuts, and then roasted. The stuffing added rich flavors, making this dish a favorite for those who could afford it. Lastly, there was cockentrice, a fantastical dish that combined the front half of a piglet with the back half of a capon or chicken. The two halves were sewn together and roasted as one, creating an impressive centerpiece for grand feasts. The preparation was elaborate, involving careful sewing and seasoning to ensure the dish was both visually and gastronomically appealing. Fun fact: King Edward IV was reportedly fond of eel pies and kept his kitchens well stocked with fresh fish to prepare this rich delicacy. Food and symbolism. In medieval times, food wasn't just sustenance, it was rich with symbolism. For instance, the elaborate dishes served at noble feasts often had hidden meanings. Pies with live birds symbolized abundance and surprise, while dishes shaped like castles or dragons showcased the host's imagination and status. Even the choice of ingredients could carry meaning. Spices like saffron and cinnamon were not only prized for their flavors, but also for their association with wealth and exotic lands. Meanwhile, the simplicity of peasant food symbolized humility and a connection to the earth. The role of religion in medieval diets. Religion played a significant role in shaping medieval diets. Dietary rules such as abstaining from meat during Lent not only influenced individual meals, but also shaped communal practices. Feast days and fast days created shared experiences that brought communities together, reinforcing social bonds and a collective sense of devotion. During Lent and other fasting periods, both nobles and peasants were required to abstain from meat. This restriction led to the development of creative fasting recipes, such as mock meats made from ground almonds or fish, molded into the shape of birds. From the grand feasts of the nobility to the humble pottage of the peasantry, medieval food offers a fascinating glimpse into the past. It tells stories of wealth and power, survival and resourcefulness, and the deeply held beliefs that shaped every aspect of life. So the next time you sit down to a meal, take a moment to reflect on the history behind the food on your plate. Who knows, you might just be tasting a piece of the past. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the echoes of time. We hope our stories brought you relaxation and a touch of wonder. If you enjoyed this, add our videos to your bedtime playlist and let history soothe you into a peaceful rest. Until next time, stay curious,